Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk to you about astrology, Vedic astrology in particular, spiritual matters, and also what's happening in the upcoming week. So, I've been doing this broadcast for about close to 3 years now, I think, and I'm happy to be on Great New Bedford Cable TV. As of March, the intros may be changed. I'm not sure yet. And so, but I need to do something about my introductions and some of the ways the show um, is presented to you. So that's for me. That's a special issue I have to work out, and it's nothing. The broadcast will still continue. Just the edits won't continue. So 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 basically, and I'm hoping to uh, get that addressed before March 1st. Um, well, um, I just want to say a little bit about myself before I started this week's broadcast. I've been a professional astrologer since 1991, and I've also been a meditator, priest of the Kriya Yoga lineage since 1995, I believe it was, and also a Reiki master since around 1996. And I also have a doctoral degree in education, and I'm a former president and vice president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I also teach at the American Council of Vedic Astrology, American College of Vedic Astrology, excuse me, and also at Kepler College and Dira Academy. If you're interested in receiving lessons from me, you can contact me directly. The best way to contact me is probably through text at 508-525-0001. Again, that's 508-525-0001. Or else you can contact me at Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. So GaryGomes G, the letter G, at gmail.com, or NEIVAS at Comcast.net. I usually get back to people within about a day, and sometimes faster, and depending on what's happening on that particular day. And I'd be more than happy to talk with you about readings or lessons or anything you're interested in. So the purpose of the show is really to give a viewpoint of both world events, astrological events, and how they affect world events. And we do that through a combination. Oh, and by the way, I am working on a book. I have a great helper who's helping me edit. It's one of my students, and I'll give her exposure as time goes on. And I also have I'm also working on developing a school. So we have some exciting things coming up. We also will be working on developing new shows for you. I need to get back home and back into my own studio again. It's been kind of a prolonged period where I've been doing this out of my store, and that will hopefully be coming to an end within a couple of months. And a lot of these other projects I've been promising you for a while will come to fruition. Yeah, so essentially, uh, the idea of this particular presentation is to help you understand what's going on astrologically, give you a perspective into what's happening to you personally, both in terms of your sign and just in terms of the general astrological weather. So I'm going to start by showing a chart right now, and just so you can see what's what's been going on. It's been some pretty stormy astrological weather lately. And the main reason for that is we have a phenomenon which isn't all that rare, to be honest with you, but with these two planets in particular, it's a bit unusual. So we have, I've spoken with everybody about the Sun, Saturn, Mercury conjunction, which has been bothering people for the past few weeks. And Mercury, so you can see right now the moon's in Gemini. So this is a South Indian astrological chart. That's Pisces, that's Aries, that's Taurus, that's Gemini, that's Cancer, that's Leo, that's Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and you can see all this activity in Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So these are the regular signs we know from Western astrology. They have great names in Vedic astrology or in Indian astrology. Pisces becomes Meena, Aries becomes Mesha, Taurus becomes Vrishaba, Gemini becomes Mithuna, Cancer becomes Karka, Leo becomes Sima, Simha, Virgo becomes Kanya, Libra is Tula, Thula, Scorpio becomes Vrishika, Sagittarius becomes Dhanus, and Capricorn becomes Makara, and Aquarius becomes Kumbha. So I'm not going to use a Sanskrit name, so I'm just going to, I just thought I'd throw that in just for a little fun. But basically, the moon is pretty well placed by lunar mansion. It's an Ardra nakshatra. It's kind of an emotional nakshatra right now, so everybody's feeling kind of fraught or emotional. They have actually for the past 3 days or so, because the moon was in conjunction with Rahu. According to one of my colleagues, there's a combination called, and actually it's true, there's a combination called the Kala Sarpa Yoga. And the moon is, so that is when all the planets are between Rahu, the North Lunar Node, and Ketu. Now the moon is in Gemini sign, so that breaks what's called the Kala Sarpa Yoga. So essentially, if you try to do some projects and you felt just tied in or confined, this will give you a chance to move forward over the next couple of weeks until the moon conjoins with Ketu again. However, at the same time, this still isn't a very easy chart, because over the next week or so, the moon is going to be, towards the end of the week, it'll be full. But the good news about that is it'll be a full moon with Jupiter's aspects. So that's actually really, really good news. There are still difficulties, though, especially this weekend. And I'll explain that to you just really quickly. So what we have right now is we have a combination of Mars and Venus. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see from your picture, but you'll notice that Mars is at 19 degrees, 54 minutes, and Venus is at 20 degrees, 40 minutes. Now that constitutes a situation called planetary war. And planetary war, there are a variety of states of planetary war, but essentially when two planets are in the same sign and they're right next to each other, within 1 degree of each other, one planet is deemed the winner and the other planet is deemed the loser. Okay? And there are a variety of ways of assessing this. I tend to prefer a more conservative approach, which is essentially the planet at lower degree is the winner in planetary war, because Venus seems to be running away. Now, this particular combination, this is kind of interesting because throughout most of the week, it really won't be until the end of the week that Venus actually tends to start winning the planetary war. And Venus is naturally, just in terms of brightness, the strongest of the non-luminary planets. It's just magnificently bright. If you see Venus in the sky, you only see it rarely or only see it periodically because it tends to dip below the horizon. And Mercury you see less often, but basically Venus essentially it rises, then it dips below the horizon. And but you see Venus it's a really large object in the sky, like around twice the size of Jupiter. And Jupiter you can usually see by looking at roughly at 45 degrees in the sky. And Jupiter's is constantly in that position. But Venus is about twice the size. And as a matter of fact, if you look carefully, you can see phases in Venus. So you'll see like little crescents in Venus's shape when you're looking at the planet. But Mars right now is defeating Venus. So what does that do? Well, essentially that puts us into warlike states. Okay, Mars is in a warlike nakshatra, not nakshatra, excuse me. It's in a warlike sign, and this is rather. I won't say this is an unusual position for Vedic astrologer to take, but Sagittarius is considered to be the sign of the guru or the teacher, and it's typically associated with peacefulness and knowledge and learning. But it's also connected with the art of war or the art of diplomacy, because Dana Veda it's arrows, it's the weapons of diplomacy or the weapons of war. And so Mars is in that particular sign along with Venus. So that threatens the peace. It threatens victory. In a few days, Venus will be winning the planetary war, but this combination will be going back and forth for at least at least another week. And I think you'll see this is where a lot of the tensions about war are coming from, in connection with Russia, in connection with China, even in connection with warlike activities like or demonstrations like the Ottawa siege by the truckers. And there are plans for a siege, I've heard, in the United States. So this combination is actually it's a little bit dangerous. And it affects us on a personal level, and the relationship partners won't seem to be all that happy with us, or it would be very easy to upset relationship partners. Fights will break out easily, and they'll seem to be almost insurmountable struggles, at least until the end of next week. And the planets will still be in fairly close conjunction, so that fighting, a lot of stuff will spur fights relatively quickly. Venus changes signs in about 10 days. It'll move into Capricorn. That's not a better movement, to be honest with you, because Venus in this sign at least gives a person some feeling of control or some energy. Venus in Capricorn it'll make a person more practical, but also because it's in conjunction with Saturn, a little bit more depressed. So relationships will seem to be a lot of work over the next month or so. But on the positive side, the sun isn't involved with Saturn after around the 15th of the month, and that'll make governments seem to be less oppressive or less controlling. And Mercury is also slowly but surely moving towards Saturn. Now, what that'll do is that'll make the press more pessimistic. So the press, and again, it may seem like I'm really picking on the press, but I'm not really. The press throughout the world sort of like dwells on its primary, its intent is to keep people informed, and I think it's um, it hasn't been doing that as well as it could. And the reason I'm saying that is because the press also needs some kind of, because competition has grown over the past 30, 40 years, the press needs to keep us anxious about things that could go wrong. Now, again, that's not unrealistic. A lot of things could go wrong in the world, but it's also managed to segment society. We're in a Rahu major planetary period in the United States. Our planet's Mercury is with Rahu, and a lot of our communications tends to be around things going wrong or people conspiring to hurt us or to damage us. So this Rahu major planetary period, you're going to get a lot of I would call panicky reporting. So it's really going to be rare to find a good, measured, reasonable reporting cycle. So that's just in general. But right now, most of the attention will be on people being depressed or being a little bit anxious. And I think one of the things you're looking at as well is I have run across an aspect, a book which tends to ascribe aspects for Ketu and Rahu, and this is the first one that's made any sense to me. And that is Ketu aspects 3 signs away and 11 signs away. So essentially, and Rahu does the same thing, 3 and 11 signs away. So what that does is that tends to make the news about conspiracies or the news about people trying to take over governments or people trying to thwart other people more more understandable. Okay, I mean, we can look at it from the Saturn Mercury aspect, and Pluto's there as well. So we have Pluto to, if we're Western astrology, we have Pluto to blame for that. But that Ketu, that experience of Ketu influencing Saturn, and just the idea that Saturn's influencing Mercury right now is going to make people seem very, very pessimistic. And folks, this is a short-term phenomenon. It'll be largely over. That kind of like anxiety will be over by the end of March. Okay, a lot of things will break. A lot of truth will come out around the end of March, early April, and that's because Ketu and Rahu will be changing signs. But until then, you're going to see a lot of actions painted in the worst possible light. Also, just as a precursor, Saturn is moving into Aquarius around late April, May. And I actually analyzed this for a chart this week. There's a system of analyzing Saturn transits, and this particular transit of Saturn will actually be somewhat good financially. And so will the transit of Saturn into Aquarius next January. But around June, Saturn's going to go back into Capricorn, and that'll cast some anxiety about market conditions. The other thing I want to say just quickly is that markets will, again, I've spoken about inflationary pressure not letting up for at least another year or so. And also, at least from the chart, you'll see some panic happening over the next couple of months. there'll be fear of war or fear of because Mars, it won't be long before Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and that'll make people more anxious about war, more anxious about military things. And but again, uh, what I'm trying to encourage people to understand is these are going to be small revolts. These aren't going to be um, major military conflicts where we get all sides thrown together in a large conflagration. That's really not happening for quite a few years. So, um, so the next war, we may see another war in the 2030s. I'm hoping that's not the case. Um, and but that's the earliest I'm seeing another major war. And I think also, at least from the chart, a lot of the panic right now is mainly due to this bad Mercury, essentially just um, just panicking people, and it's easier to try to think of a non. Um, it's easier to motivate or control people when they're afraid. Okay, so it's not like the government's consciously setting out to do evil stuff. It's more like we have a lot of unpredictability, so the markets will be affected next month. And we also have a lot of uncertainty, and that makes people afraid. It makes them stick with um, the existing beliefs. They don't have the luxury of entertaining other beliefs. And this is true both about the right and the left. It's not really a partisan stand, you know. So nobody's going to back off on position, um, and really until next summertime, they'll start maybe starting to be a little bit more reasonable. Uh, but yeah, if you do have big projects, start putting those together. The moon's in Gemini right now. It'll and also great time for writing projects or teaching projects around the end of next week. Just an excellent time for teaching people or advising people or seeking guidance. Okay, towards the end of next week. If we're looking at the chart as I have it, the moon's in the first house, Venus and Mars are aspecting the first house. So there's that fear about war. There's that fear that there's going to be tears because the moon's in Ardra and there are going to be storms. Jupiter also aspects the first house, though. So that's calms things down a little bit. People want to be reasonable. So that's a good thing. Venus's aspect on the moon, people are more interested in. So it's pretty good for St. Valentine's Day because the Venus Mars tends to make people really passionate. But again, you have to be careful with that because they'll be passionate, but they'll also be eager to fight. Okay, they'll be eager to be depressed. So you'll have to watch out for that. And finally, just in terms of, so Rahu's in Taurus, is a low degree, as you can see, it's 3 degrees, 32 minutes. And Ketu's in Scorpio, so it's just in the nakshatra where the moon is debilitated. So that's going to make people seem a little bit hopeless, like there's no end to a lot of this stuff. Um, I think you're going to see a large break, especially in terms of the pandemic. Around March, you'll probably see some attempts at government controls coming back during the summertime, some efforts to institute some kind of controls or some kind of uh, grasp. And you'll also see, I would think, more likely than not, some um, some aggravation with leadership, especially over the next 3 to 4 months. So I think we're not out of the woods yet in terms of COVID, but we're close. We're like a matter of months away. And also, I think you'll see a lot of countries just starting to say, we can't control people, and it's pointless to try. Although, again, like I said, this summertime you'll see a resurgence in that kind of activity. So it isn't to say, and as a matter of fact, this isn't. I'm not making a policy position on this. I'm just saying essentially what's going to happen over the next few months. When Saturn moves into Aquarius, you'll see a lot of liberalization. Jupiter in Aquarius has presented a lot of cures, a lot of new remedies for diseases. But again, this will wave in again over the summertime. I wish I could give you better news than that, but I don't want to lie to you either. But it's not going to be as serious as the previous waves. It's going to be a lot more measured and a lot more logical. All right, so let's look at the astrology map. And I'm going to stop sharing. This is something I normally do just to make sure that we have a consistent screen up. So let's look and see where possible trouble spots are. Now, the good news is we have Venus and Mars are over Alaska. Not so good for Alaska, but it'll make that part of the world a little bit more angry than normal. Jupiter is passing over Alaska too, so that's basically a good transit for Alaska. So the Alaskan economy may improve a little bit, and Mercury's over the west coast of Canada, so you'll see some depressing reporting coming out of Western Canada. Rahu's passing over California, so you'll see some panic coming out of Western California, or some scandal coming out of California and Oregon and Washington, and also down into Mexico. We have a Saturn line running straight through Montana, it looks like, and New Mexico and Arizona. So those parts of the world should have some economic issues, some economic problems. And this belt right here, you'll see attempts at government control, but also attempts to get out of government control. And this goes all the way down to Mexico. So you'll start to see the economy trying to recover, but there'll be limitations or obstructions to it. Jupiter is passing through the Midwest, is passing over Indiana and down through Kentucky and Tennessee and into Louisiana and Mississippi, I believe it, and Alabama. I'm sorry, Mississippi and Alabama, and down into Mexico. Now, this is an interesting line because this indicates this part of the world will start to get a lot better in terms of health issues and in terms of healthcare. You'll start to see lower infection rates. You'll start to see people coming out of COVID restrictions. And over here on the East Coast of the United States, you have this Moon, Mars, Venus line hitting. So this will indicate to me, it indicates like really aggressive fights for political control. So we've had parties essentially condemning followers. This will heat up, if anything, over the next few months. Okay, so party members will be condemned. You're going to see a lot of coverage on the January 6th incident. Um, I'm not calling it an insurrection or a riot. I'm trying to stay neutral on that. And also, you have a Mars line. You have these three lines running through Brazil. So we can expect some violence in Brazil, some aggression in Brazil, and also some negative reporting coming out of Brazil over the next few weeks. If you look at the Saturn line, there's a Saturn line running through and a Sun line running through close to the Azores and close to the Madeiras. And so those areas will have intense problems with government, maybe even some governmental scandals. Iceland has a Jupiter line running through it, so that's actually good. It'll actually mean Iceland's getting close to recovery, although it's still not quite recovered yet. There's a Saturn line running through that in West Africa. And there's a Jupiter line running close to England and through Spain. So Spain should actually show some reforms coming or some new activity coming in that part of the world. So that actually looks good. And England looks like it'll loosen up a little bit. England and France look like they'll loosen up a little bit. There are no major lines running through Europe right now, which is a good thing for Europe, and also through most of Libya and Algeria. But there is a strong Venus and Mars line running through Turkey and also up north through most of Eastern Europe. So what that means to me is essentially there'll be fights or arguments or internal internal civil unrest in Turkey and in Egypt and down through the Sudan and down through South Africa. If we're talking about wars, there's a Mars line close to the Ukraine, and there's also a Mercury line close to the Ukraine. But a lot of that has to do with essentially depressing or feeling constricted or tied in. So we'll be getting a lot of bad news out of the Ukraine, but and out of Russia, but there's not necessarily an indication that anything's going to pop this month. It may, so I may be wrong about this, but I'm not seeing that happening. Saturn is running through Pakistan, Afghanistan, central Russia, and Rahu is moving through central India. So this is interesting because Rahu will give some political scandals in India. It'll give some dismay with the government. It'll give some dismay, especially since I know the chart of India with leadership. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting period for India. Sri Lanka will also be going through somewhat of the same thing because of this line running up over here. The other lines, you have a Jupiter line running through China, so China may start to expand a little bit, but there'll be scandals in middle China. And also some scandals in Burma or Myanmar, what's called Myanmar now. The other lines that are hitting my attention is we're seeing Moon Mars and Jupiter line hitting the Philippines and Japan, and a Venus line sort of close to Borneo and Papua New Guinea, and I think, and also Western Australia. So Australia has been under intense pressure lately. They haven't really been very happy, from what I understand. And this Mars Mercury line will give some kind of violence inclination to that part of the world. The Saturn line over on the eastern side of Australia indicates some potential for destruction. And there's a Rahu line running through New Zealand. This is kind of unusual because New Zealand has not been touched all that much. You'll see a little bit of panic developing in New Zealand, and um, so watch out for that. This will be kind of unusual because New Zealand is really different. Has been really rather untouched by COVID, by economic crises. But I think one of the things that I'm getting the most from a lot of the charts I'm seeing right now is there's a great deal of economic unrest. And that's mainly because of governments being unable to think of new ways to handle supply shortages and inflation hitting pretty much universally across the world. And as I've said in previous broadcasts, what we're experiencing in the United States is, compared to other parts of the world, is relatively mild. So certain parts um, of the area that was like close to the lines that I was showing over India and Afghanistan, that part of the world is seeing like enormous inflationary pressure. Brazil is starting to see some enormous inflationary pressure. So those parts of the world aren't really being hit by it, and are really being hit by it, excuse me. And so that's why I'm saying I think you're going to see a lot of economic inspired negative activity. So essentially, like I said, more revolt than actual wars. And even a lot of the activity that Russia's engaged with in China is engaged with right now, it's really more connected with economics than it is with land grabs. It's more, it's more of certain resources being considered valuable from those parts of the world. So I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that's what's happening. So, and so there are no lines near Taiwan except for this little one. The Philippines, though, look like they're, and Indonesia look like it's in pretty rough shape. So let's go on to, we have a little bit more time to look at, so I'm not going to really do anything in terms of like what I did last week, where I spoke about the Chinese New Year. But again, keep in mind, just the Chinese New Year itself is rather dramatic and rather emotional. So this is compared to this year, where it's just everybody's been really afraid to do anything. People will be emboldened during the year of the tiger, and there will be a call, especially with Jupiter entering Pisces in the summertime, to dissolve certain governments, to dissolve certain arrangements that have existed for a long time. I don't think you're going to see civil war in the United States. I do think we are moving close to a constitutional convention, and I do think we are moving close to a reform movement happening in the United States. And again, it'll happen from both the left and the right. So and again, it's basically, I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. We've had power concentrated in the hands of a few people for a long time. And other people are going to want to either be listened to or have that share of power, whether it's coming from the left who want to see more socialization, more um, more um, attention to social needs, or from the right who want to see more freedom, more liberty, less control. So it's going to really take some top-notch thinking in order to figure out a way to compromise those two positions. But we can do it, and the world overall can do it. Okay. So we figured out uh, our way out of worse dilemmas before. And hopefully, I'm guardedly optimistic we'll figure out our way out of this. All right. But communications is the key. Communications is going to be the real issue over the next 10 years or so. Okay, so let's go back to the charts and look at individual signs. And I need to check my timer. Okay, so Aries has, oh, by the way, if you like what I'm doing, don't forget to share, like. If you don't like what I'm doing, let me know what I can do better. And I'll be happy to adjust it for that. But I think overall, I do want to increase subscriptions, just to be honest with you, so I can get some monetization. I'd like to be able to do that. I'd also like to be able to add channels and also provide higher quality videos to you. So it's both selfish and um, it also allows me to give you a better product. Okay. All right. So if we're looking at um, Aries rising, so let's go back to your individual signs now, your individual sun signs or moon signs or rising signs. And from this chart, so again, keep in mind, an Indian zodiac is different from a Western zodiac. And we're talking about sidereal astrology, which is star-based or constellationally based. And so essentially there's an adjustment of about 23 to 24 degrees for every sun sign. So essentially Aries is April 15th to May 15th, and every sign follows in that sequence. Taurus is May 15th to June 15th. You get the idea. So Aries has um, a lot of focus on relationship life, and a lot of focus on arguments with relationship partners, at least for the next week. And you'll also see the sign really starting to gather influential friends or smart friends. And you'll actually see the sign start to gain some honors or recognition next month. So that's a good thing. Work-wise, work will seem like it's drudgery, and it'll seem to be a lot of effort to get communications out without a lot of reward, but that'll change within a couple of weeks. The other things to keep in mind is this Mars-Venus conjunction in the ninth house and the moon in the third house. Strong desire to greet the public, strong desire to address the public. Rahu in the second house always wants more money, but they'll get fame and recognition and money within a few weeks. Okay, so this is by March 23rd, according to the chart. For Taurus, Taurus has is money focused again, is family focused again. Moon is in the second house, is Lord of the third, so it's really anxious to communicate with people. It really wants to have a strong communicational base. And this also affects other signs as well, depending on what major planetary period the individual's running. So if a person's in a Taurus major planetary period, or a Taurus-based major planetary period, they'll want to get these things out as well. But I don't want to complicate things too much. So the moon is in the second house, so there's a strong desire for fame, recognition, and also from this chart, some family anxiety. So the family will feel a little bit anxious. Some relationship stress for Taurus from this chart. However, career life, although slow, will be good. And Jupiter, especially in conjunction with the Sun after around Tuesday, very good for career recognition. For Cancer, now this is rising sign, moon or sun. A lot of focus on fame recognition, but relationship life will seem to be a struggle. There'll be fights with relationship partners, not very different from Aries, but also they'll have access to new information, new ideas, new concepts. So that'll be good. The transit of, and also they'll start to gather some famous friends, but they'll also start to feel a little bit hidden away or like they want to retreat. This has been kind of a frustrating week for them. They're very sensitive. It's a very sensitive sign. And so since about the middle of last week, they've been really, really anxious and kind of reclusive. But that'll change within about 2 days. For Leo has planets in the sixth house, so we'll have to watch out for illnesses, have to watch out for diseases, have to watch out for gossip. But also they'll get a great deal of career fame, they'll get well-known friends, but they'll also be a bit detached from their relationship life. They'll be a bit detached from their home life. And this particular placement is a little bit difficult because they'll feel a little bit estranged. They'll have a lot more courage within a couple of months, but there are fights with kids, although they love their kids, and also confidence problems are showing up. Jupiter is well aligned to give this sign more relationship opportunities. So you're a single Leo, that's August 15th to September 15th. It's a good time for you. You can form new partnerships, new relationships. And again, more potential for fame, more potential for recognition. For Virgo has the first lord in the fifth house is kind of weak. A lot of their focus will be on relationship life and struggles in relationships. Okay, so relationship partners will act like their enemies or difficult for this sign. And they'll also be depressed and a little bit disappointed in life. And they may have health problems as well. So relationship partners may have health problems as well. Mars aspects the seventh house, so it doesn't make relationship life any easier when that happens. And they'll be picked upon by relationship partners, to be honest with you. Rahu's in the ninth house, gives strong contact with people from different countries, from different cultures. And Moon is in the 10th house, so it'll give a shift in career or sort of a change in career, especially in part-time jobs. But overall, the chart is good except for relationship life. Relationship life will be very challenging for this sign over the next couple of months. So keep that in mind if you're a Virgo sun or a Virgo or a Virgo moon or a Virgo rising sign. For Libra has Ketu in the second house, so a lot of people won't understand what Libra is saying, but they'll know there's a lot of passion connected with it. There's a lot of financial stress or financial anxiety connected with this combination. And Mercury's in the fourth house, so there are delays connected with home life or connected with construction projects. Jupiter's in the fifth house. That's basically a good combination, so you'll have more chances for love affairs, for creative activities. It's not just love affairs, it's all kinds of creative activities. And the Lord of the seventh house is in the third house, so that gives a strong desire for this sign to be alone, to be by itself. Moon is in the ninth house, change of luck over the next few days, so luck will actually improve. And career-wise, you'll start to see more recognition, more possibilities for financial gain over the next week. For Scorpio, Vrishika, Ketu's in the first house, so this sign has had some trouble in terms of expressing itself. And when it has expressed itself over the past year, it's been a little bit vindictive. But Mars is in the second house, it's beating Venus in planetary war, so it's essentially giving some problems in relationship life to this sign. So relationship life problems are sort of a theme with this Venus-Mars conjunction. They'll ease up a bit towards the end of next week. Strong ambition, strong desire, strong self-discipline for this sign over the next few days. And Jupiter, strong religious inclinations for this sign towards the end of next week, especially when Jupiter and the Sun are in the same sign, excuse me. Rahu's in the seventh house. Relationship partners will seem not to be happy, but that'll be sort of a passing phase. And Moon's in the eighth house, so that gives relationship partners will be moody or a little bit difficult to figure out. But that's been true of this sign over the past year. There'll also be a potential for investments or for changes of bosses. For Capricorn, Capricorn's in the first house, or for Sagittarius, Mars and Venus are in the first house, automatically gives relationship problems. People with this sign may feel like changing relationships. They would be well advised not to do so, not for a little while anyway. Sun, Saturn, and Mercury in the second house, communications are damaged. Jupiter's in the third house, always went to do the right thing. The first lord in the third house, they always want to do the right thing. They're a little bit averse to taking a chance right now. Jupiter's aspecting the moon, more interested in writing and communicating, so that's a good thing. Rahu's in the sixth house, governmental scandals show up again. So this is something which is connected with the United States chart, because as I have Sagittarius as the rising sign for the US. But also, at least from this chart, there'll be more exposés or more public information shared to people. And a lot of things, have probably been lied to about a lot of things in government over the past couple of years. And like I said, on both sides of the coin, and this will be true of any governments. So a lot of European countries have Virgo or Sag, and Turkey has a Gemini rising. You're going to see all those countries encounter some kind of political scandals over the next few months, and also some kind of economic crises or meltdowns. Now, this doesn't mean economies are going to collapse. That's not really what's going to happen. But a lot of speculation, a lot of speculative investment that this chart, this sign does. That'll be, and again, we've already seen markets slow down, but I don't think they bottom out. I don't think that's really going to happen until March. And also, at least from this chart, Sagittarius will have additional relationship possibilities, but they will end up in tears. And Ketu in the 12th house, better for spiritual life than for relationship life for this sign right now. For Capricorn, so we have the strong Saturn in Capricorn, that kind of like authoritarian Saturn in Capricorn. That's going to stay there for another few weeks, then move out. It'll seem like everybody's free for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden a lot of their constrictions will come back in, or restrictions will come back in. So it's going to be a challenging 2022, to be honest. But Jupiter's well placed in the sign for financial progress. Jupiter's well placed in after May, June for diplomatic progress. And this particular sign has some difficulty with creativity. Moon is in the sixth house, so it's going to feel like its partnerships are a little bit, um, or it's going to feel opposition from partners over the next week or so. And basically, it will be experiencing some financial losses over the next couple of days, over the next few days. So this won't last long. Venus will enter this sign within about 2 weeks at the outside, and so you'll see some financial progress coming back to Capricorns. But over the next couple of weeks, more emphasis on romance, more emphasis um, on adventures in far off lands. Not really a lot of focus on life at home. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Jupiter in the first house. It's a good placement for Aquarius. It gives a lot of lucky breaks, a lot of good opportunities for the sign, and also gives good opportunities for financial success. This transit won't last long, okay? So take advantage of it while you can. If you're an Aquarius sun, or an Aquarius moon, or an Aquarius rising, and also reach out to people career-wise over the next couple of weeks. The moon is in the fifth house, so this is actually a good time for you to expand career life and also to defeat enemies. The sun is in the 12th house, so relationship life won't seem to be that great really until about the middle of next week. And also, at least from the chart, Ketu is in the 10th house. So again, career life will tend to be a little bit under-recognized until at the end of March. Around March, you'll start to see career life start to come back into focus again, and you'll get more recognition. In terms of finances show good opportunity for growth, but there will be expenses because of spouse or because of children or because of personal habits. Finally, Pisces is in Pisces. Lord is in the 12th house. This will give financial expenditures, but also a strong interest in spiritual life. Rahu is in the 3rd house, and Moon is in the 4th. So this sign will get some fame or some acclaim. Moon, Venus, and Mars are aspecting the Moon, so they'll be known for fighting. It's kind of an unusual condition to associate with Pisces, but just for this one short period of time, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be in a fighting mode. And also, home life will change. You'll see changes in home life. Ketu's in the 9th house. Supervisors will be tough. Luck will be tough. It'll be unexpected. It'll give unexpected breaks. And the 10th house is strong, good for work life. 11th house is good for gains, but slow. And this sign will experience a lot of pressure because of Saturn aspecting the 1st house. So that's about it for this week. I want everyone to stay safe, to be well, to do what they enjoy doing. And I'm going to sign off right now. Like I said, share this, join for broadcasts. I want to say namaste, and I love everyone out there who watches, and I love people who don't watch, but I want to give blessings to more people and help more people. So please encourage your friends to join. Okay, thank you very much. And again, namaste. Bye, everyone.